Today's session is actually one I've been wanting to do for a while because it's a question that we get asked quite a bit, or we get told quite a bit that, oh, I can do my own digital marketing, or I handle all of it in-house. And, people will say some variation of, I probably should be doing this, or I should be paying somebody to do this. And depending on who you are and what your business is, it depends on the task that we're talking about and whether or not you feel like you can do it yourself, the DIY route, or if you need to outsource it. Most things people ask us about is blog posting, email marketing, social media, and running their own ads, whether that is social media ads or Google ads. So today we're going to kind of talk through that decision-making process a little bit, give you something better than a yes or no answer on, hey, should I be doing this myself, or why should I be doing this? So we're going to kind of talk through some of the things that you maybe should be taking control of and other things that you might want to relinquish some of that control over. Again, like most of these, we're going to try and keep it to 20 minutes and then we'll open it up for questions. But as always, if you have questions, please do put them in the Q&A or in the chat. So let's talk about why we even are doing this presentation. And a lot of it is as small business owners, me included, we like to think that we can do 100% of everything. I can run my business, I can do the marketing, I can do the accounting, I can do my own HR, I can do my own payroll, I can do all of it because I'm a small business owner. And I think we have gotten really good at just figuring things out. But when we talk about digital marketing, I think if these webinars have taught you anything, it's that this industry is changing so incredibly fast that that's the whole reason we do these webinars, is because everything is changing so fast that we're trying to be a bit of a beacon showing here are the things that are changing, here are things that are important to small business owners. So when we talk about small business marketing, when we hear people talk about it, they talk about it like it's just one job, like, oh, you just do marketing and that's one thing that you do. But actually, when we talk about digital marketing, we're looking at five different specialties, potentially more if we get into like hosting and system administration type stuff, which we are not talking about, but that does have a role in digital marketing as well. But when we look at search engine optimization, search now includes SEO and AI answers, or that AEO, GEO that we've talked about. Email marketing isn't just writing emails, it's writing emails, making sure the lists are maintained, making sure the technical side of things are landing in people's inboxes. We did a whole presentation on this already. Building your website, becoming a webmaster does not just include, making pretty graphics. It also includes building the website, maintaining the website, keeping the website from being hacked. Social media is now multiple different platforms. So it's not just, Facebook is part of social media, but so is TikTok, so is LinkedIn, so is Instagram, so is, any of the other platforms out there. So social media and keeping up with the different sets of rules that each one of those platforms have. And then paid search, where I mean, really, if paid search goes unchecked, that is real money that can be moving out of your business every single day. So, really, every single one of these items is a career in itself. There are people who do nothing but email deliverability. That is their job, is to make sure that they are, their emails are being delivered. There are people who do nothing but Google ads. So, each of these could be an individual career. And in fact, we have folks on staff that specialize in each one of these, kind of areas here. You can learn any one of these things. As a business owner, again, we are incredibly gifted at just figuring things out and kind of working our way through it. So I do not doubt that any one of you on this call today would be able to figure these things out. You could absolutely figure these things out. The problem is that you already have a full-time job in running your business. So no one is going to hand you, a second 40 hours so that you can try to figure out how to become your own marketing department. So something has to give. And the goal is not to, have you give away everything, but the goal is for you to be able to focus on what you're good at, which is, doing the thing that you started the business for, and then outsourcing the other things that somebody else is really good at. So that's kind of why we even got to where we're this whole presentation today. Before we get into our framework, want to name the three costs of doing it yourself. The first is your time. Obviously, if you're spending your time on a Sunday afternoon trying to figure out how to update your website, technically it's free because you didn't pay someone, you didn't write that check to us to update your website or to your web developer to update your website. But what is the actual cost of that is, first of all, your time is not free. Second of all, that could be time spent either, doing your job or spending time with your family or doing a hobby or doing something else that could be more effective for you. The 4 hours you spent would actually probably only take us an hour to do, for example. So the hidden cost is actually your time. Second one of them is what I would call the half finished conundrum, which we get a lot of phone calls about half finished projects. And this one matters more than people I think about this. It's I started a Facebook page and I posted pretty good to it, every day for 2 months, and then I stopped 2 years ago and I haven't gotten back to it. That's not like a net neutral. That actually is a negative. You've ended up somewhat worse off by starting and then stopping because someone's going to land on that Facebook page and they're going to see the last post was 2 years ago. And then they're going to quietly wonder, that seed of doubt starts to go in their head of, are they still in business? Same thing with blog posting. If you have a date stamped blog on your website and your last post is more than 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, if it's certainly not within 2026, that's doing more harm than good. Also, a newsletter. If you get in the cadence of sending two newsletters and then you never do it again, that's actually hurting you more than if you were to be consistent with it and maybe or not do it at all. Doing something badly and then stopping can end up hurting you more than not starting down the road. And the third one is the one that gets people the most, and those are the quiet mistakes. If I send out an email with a typo, it's a loud mistake. We'll talk about that. But if your contact form on your website that you built breaks and you haven't received a contact us form request or an estimate request from your website in months, maybe you just think you're having a slow period, but maybe somebody's actually filling out that form and they're just not calling to say, hey, I never heard back from you when I filled out your contact form. You might not only notice 3 or 4 months later, and by then you've missed out on how many leads, how many opportunities. So those are what we would call the quiet mistakes, tend to be the more expensive mistakes. So we're going to keep those things in mind as we kind of go through these. And really, they are kind of what happens when we go through the three questions that we ask in kind of our framework of should I DIY or should I outsource? This is your framework for it. Really, any task for marketing, you could run through these questions and it might help you decide if you wanted to outsource it or if it's something you wanted to keep in-house and do it yourself, learn how to do it better. First question is, does it compound? Meaning, if you do this every month for 2 years, does it build into something that could be meaningful for your business? Or is it something that you do once and then it's done? So ask the compounding question. Question two is, what does a mistake cost? If you get it wrong, is it a little bit embarrassing, like that typo in the email or like that post on Instagram where I had a misspelling or I had an unflattering picture or whatever? Is it embarrassing or is it expensive? That's the question you're going to want to ask. And then question three is the one that I think, again, getting into the mind of small business owners is hard for us to honestly answer because we think we're superhuman and we can do anything. And the question is, will you keep doing it? And actually go look at your calendar before you say, yeah, absolutely, I can, send an email every 2 days for the rest of my life. Look at your calendar because your intentions, if we were able to get tasks done based on intentions, I would be the most perfect business owner ever known to mankind because my intentions are solid. I have the best intentions to provide videos to our social media manager, to take pictures of projects, to video record testimonials, to send an email 3 times a week. I have the best of intentions, but does my calendar actually allow for me to do those things consistently? The answer to that is no, which is why we have to have people on our team helping us with that. So the question three is, will you keep doing it? And try and answer that as honestly as you possibly can. So let's take a look at these a little bit more in depth, kind of one by one. So does it compound? On the left is compounding work, asking for reviews. And this is where there's a little bit of a hybrid situation because obviously the work compounds and obviously you can do it, but and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of slides, but asking for reviews compounds. So if you start today and you ask every customer that you talk to, if it's, let's say you're a restaurant, so you serve 100 people a day. If you ask every single one of those people for a review and you do it today and tomorrow and every single day for the rest of the time that you own that restaurant, those reviews are going to compound. That work is going to compound. If you do it one time and never again, obviously it's not going to help you. So asking for reviews is compounding work. Your email list or your customer list is compounding work. Building that is building a database of people that you can reach out to and you can talk to on a regular basis. So building your email list or your customer list, compounding work. Answering the questions that people actually ask you. We talk to people who, when we suggest, hey, it's a good idea for you to start a blog. You have a unique perspective as a business owner doing X, Y, and Z. You should start a blog and write about these things. And the most common response I get is, I don't have, what would I blog about? I don't know what I would blog about. But those same people who are telling me that they have nothing to blog about are also the people that if I called their business and I said, hey, Janice, I'm a small business owner and I've been doing my own accounting. Can you just kind of run me through like, why is it a better idea for me to outsource my accounting to you? Obviously, Janice would be an accountant in this. And you know what Janice is never going to do is say, good question, Patrice. I have no idea. Thanks for calling. She's not going to do that, right? She's going to give me an answer. She's going to talk about saving time, making sure I'm in compliance, making sure that it's done correctly, making sure my payments are made on time so that there's no penalties and interest, all of those things that are beneficial. She's going to answer those questions for me. And all of those questions in Janice's voice are going to be what builds out a fantastic, very educational, very user and AI friendly blog. So building out that blog, that compounding work, answering the questions that people actually ask you, and putting that content on the website is compounding work. Taking photos of your team and of work and of your process, not just the finished product, but the process as well, compounding work. The right side of the screen is going to be the more one and done type work. So building your website. I put an asterisk next to that because we truly believe that a website is never done. So you can build a website, yes, but that website should always be evolving. Blog posts, new content about products. If there's new videos you can add to it, add videos. So the website, it says it's on the one and done column because technically it's there, but it really should be a always being added to type project there. But one and done would be conversion tracking and analytics setup, email authentication. So making sure that pipe is everything is flowing through that pipe. The schema markup that we've talked about, again, that there's a whole video on schema markup. Those have the things that you do one time, you do them right, and then mostly they sit there and should work for you. Doing them repeatedly does not make it better. If I update, my email authentication and I don't need to, if it's working fine, there's no reason to do that. So the general rule of thumb that we're going to be looking at here is compounding work typically because it is work that we would suggest stays somewhat close to you. Obviously, creating systems can be helped by an agency like ours. Making sure that things get done can be helped, but a lot of these things that are on that compounding side is going to be something that you're going to want to remain somewhat involved in. So we'll talk through this a little bit more. The second question, again, from our framework is, what does a mistake cost? That first top row, cheap mistakes. You write a social post that's somewhat clumsy. You send a newsletter that has a typo in it. You post a picture with no caption that you accidentally posted from your pocket. Things like that. Those are the things that when you realize you did it, God, it feels horrible. I hate sending out an email with a typo in it. I hate posting things, or if they're not scaled properly. I hate that with my entire being, but it's embarrassing. It doesn't cost me a customer. No customer is going to look at that and say, well, she made a typo. Clearly never going to hire her. They likely won't even remember it. Oops. Whoa. Sorry, I got a little happy with my mouse there. The middle row is going to be expensive mistakes. That's going to be something like a broken redirect. So something technical. If you've changed your website, you didn't do redirects, that's a big mistake. If your email is not configured correctly and you're not receiving emails from your website, big mistake. An ad account that has no budget, that's just kind of running free or is bidding on keywords that make no sense. or is being shown to a customer in Texas when you're in Washington State makes no sense. A plugin update that breaks your website, that's an expensive mistake, right? So those are the things that when you look at what does a mistake cost? If I'm doing this work myself and I make a mistake, what does that mistake cost me? That's going to be part of your process here. The bottom row, which is actually kind of the lesson here, is if you look at the pattern, the cheap mistakes are loud. You know it almost immediately. It's embarrassing, and then you can fix it. The expensive ones are silent. No one's really going to call and tell you. They might call and tell you like, "Hey, I filled out your contact form a couple of days ago, and I never heard back from you." And by that point, how many people had filled out that contact form that you missed? Google's not going to send us a warning before your email starts to land in people's spam folders. They're just going to change the rules and hope that you follow them. Uh, so the lesson again is the expensive ones are quiet, the inexpensive ones are typically louder. When you're deciding whether to DIY something, it's not necessarily asking like how hard is this task, but ask how would I find out if this was wrong? If the answer is that you wouldn't find out for months and you would rely on somebody else to tell you, then that might be a job for someone else whose entire job revolves around making sure that that is right. Question three, again, for the entrepreneur on the call, will you actually keep doing it? When we're motivated in January and we're setting up our content plan, like I can always find 2 hours to create my emails in January. January is pretty easy. The hard time is right darn now in the middle of August when the kids are out of school and there's an activity every single day that someone has to get to and from. When we are slammed with businesses trying to make sure that their Q4 is going really well, do I still have those same 2 hours per week to get my content done, to send my emails? So realistically, will I keep doing something? Look at the calendar. Again, it's not based on intentions. You have to look at that calendar. And for this, I want to make the case for the second one is for consistency. And I want to nicely lower the bar for this. If you say, okay, I can consistently do 2 posts per month, 2 genuinely useful posts per month, and you're going to commit to that and do it every single month, it's going to do you more than if you post every single day for 6 weeks and then you stop because you get too busy. So be really realistic about what you can commit to and commit to that. And the last one is the one that we really want to pay attention to today is if you look at your calendar and the answer is no, I'm not going to keep doing this, or I can see a time in which this wouldn't be something I could have on my plate, that is information that you really want to pay attention to. That is something that then you can flag as, I see this is important, there is value here, and it's something that I could likely outsource to someone else. If you have decided that that last one is a no, that I'm not going to be able to make time for this, now you have two options. You can hand it off to somebody else, or you can decide that this is not important to get done. So those are the decisions that you have to make at that point. And that is genuinely going to be kind of what the rest of our slides talk about. So things that you're going to be able to do yourself. The things that I would say are worth keeping in-house while hybriding, kind of. The first one is asking for reviews. If you are involved in your day-to-day customer interactions, you're right there with your customer at the moment when they are super grateful for the service that you provided. At the moment they're telling you what an amazing dinner they just had, or the fact that you just saved them $1,000 on their tax refund or whatever. You're there in that moment as the business owner or as a manager. Your employees are there. That is the exact moment that you can say, hey, I really appreciate working with you. Our small business is really reliant on Google reviews. I would be so appreciative if you could take your experience and tell people using Google reviews or whatever you want to say, insert your script there. But that moment is really hard to replace or replicate as an agency owner, right? Like I can help you create a system that's going to ask for people for reviews. So post, a project gets completed, boom, a review gets sent, a review request gets sent right out. But you are there in the moment when you know, like, hey, this is a good one. We want to ask right now. If you can do it in the moment, continue to do that in the moment. This costs you nothing monetarily, but building this habit will help pay dividends in the future. The second thing is the things you want to keep doing yourself is taking pictures. Again, process pictures are really valuable. So a finished product is great, right? When we can post my business is a little bit of an interesting case study on this because if I post a picture of us mid-process, it's us like, designing in Photoshop or writing code or, creating some content. But behind the scenes is very interesting for people to see. They want to see how you do your work. Like what does your process look like? Obviously, you don't want to give away the farm. So if you have like a proprietary process that no one knows, you don't want to give away your secret recipe. But some behind the scenes things are the pictures that you as a business owner, manager, or employee should be doing. Your crew, what the project looks like. If you're with a customer and they're like you're having a good vibing moment, like hey, be like, hey, can we take a selfie and take a selfie with the customer? So awkward, but usually the customer doesn't mind. And it's one of those things that will help again you in your future with when you're growing your business. So asking for those pictures as well. Number three, the thing that you want to keep doing yourself is the spontaneous type content. We handle social media for a number of businesses across the board, across industries. And the one thing that we really encourage is co-management. So yes, we have access to all of your social media, but really we would prefer if you have a customer that just came in the door and they brought you cookies and they wanted to give your staff cookies because they're just so happy with the work that you did, that is the perfect social media moment where you snap that picture and you go onto Instagram and you tag the person and you say, thanks so much for giving us cookies today. We love working with you. Big heart. Those are the things that, again, I'm not in your office. Your social media person, if it's outsourced, is not going to be in your office typically. Those are the things that you want to keep those spontaneous moments. Now, obviously, depending on your relationship with your social media person, you're welcome to snap that photo and just text it over to them. But those spontaneous moments should be up and being shown on your Instagram instantly. It's called Instagram for a reason. These are the things that are happening right now. So adding those spontaneous moments, continue to have the ownership of that and continue to be thinking of this would be a good social moment. This would be something that we can share on LinkedIn because it's educational, things like that, those spontaneous moments. Anything that is scheduled, that is for, if there's a planned holiday, if there is a planned update that Microsoft is putting out there, and that's going to be important to your customers, and we know we can schedule that ahead of time. Great, we can schedule all of that ahead of time. We can make sure that that content goes out on a regular, consistent basis. But that spontaneity, the thing that social media was actually created for, continue to have some of that, in your wheelhouse so that you can keep some of your voice and kind of connectedness to your social media. And then again, we already talked about this, but answering those questions, what your customers are asking, if there's a trend happening in your industry that you see and you're kind of identifying it at the front of it. Continue to own that and kind of flag that and either create social content for it, tell your social media manager about it, or add it to your website as part of your FAQs, because that will again help with that AEO. Again, things that we would continue to suggest that you do and you continue to have your voice in is your point of view. Again, I think almost every single AI or AEO presentation we've done, we've talked about the big difference maker is your story. You as the business owner, AI can't, it will try, but can't fabricate the experience that you have. So the time that you had to stay late working with a customer, the time that you problem solved and made a widget work for this person who had no widgets worked for before, only you have those experiences. So the story behind the job, anyone can post a pretty polished picture. Literally anyone now with AI can just generate a beautifully polished photo, but only you know, was this a rush job? Had the customer been quoted double what you had charged them somewhere else? That is the content that is going to make the post worth reading. So the story behind the job, again, you can communicate it to your social media manager if you've outsourced social media, but that's the kind of content that needs to be communicated. We are big fans of having our customer provide us with some level of a rough draft. Now, it's guided. So if we're doing work for you, and let's say you own an air conditioning, an HVAC company, right? We're in the middle of wildfire season. We're in the middle of it's hot out. We need air conditioning. If I have a question that I need you to answer in your voice, what I love is if we say, okay, hey, I'm going to need you to answer this question on how bad is it for me to breathe in, wildfire smoke, and what air quality can I expect from a system that uses your filters, for example. A big fan of the client leaving me a voice memo with that so that I can get their voice, their tone, their tenor. I can get their, if there's any jargon that they use, I can kind of use that and I can put it into layman's speak. If they have jokes or little anecdotes, that we can add those into the content as well. So that rough draft, I don't even care if it's a voice memo rough draft, but that rough draft should be in your voice. Can be a quick type it up, can be a quick voice memo, can be a quick video, whatever it is. Having you have the first rough draft is going to be what supplies what's in your head to get it out of your head and put it onto the website or onto social media. Things that you should have is going to be knowing your own numbers. And this is important, especially if you're running something like Google Ads. But what is a customer actually worth to you? And where are you getting the good ones, the ones that you actually like working with? Every decision that's on this list somehow or somewhat kind of relies on knowing those two answers. People ask us all the time, should I be doing Google Ads? And the answer is always going to be, it depends. If it's, and we'll ask the question of what is each customer worth to you? Because I might have to tell you that it's only going to make sense for you to run Google Ads if you have a $2,000 per month budget. But if each customer is only worth $25 to you, we have to get you a lot of new customers in order to make up that $2,000 a month. I have to bring you in 250 new customers or however much in order to make up that spend, right? So we need to know what your customer is worth to you. You need to know that information so that you can make some decisions on where you should be spending your marketing dollars. And then the last one is deciding who you actually are for, who your business is for. Who do you want to work with and where do you create the most impact, right? These are the things that, an agency can ask you the questions. They can kind of lead you. We can lead you to the water. We can ask you the questions. We can ask about your value proposition and who you do the work for. But really, you should have that solid answer as a business owner on where you create the most impact. Now, if we look at the other side of this, here are the things that I think are pretty easy to be handed off to a professional without you having to lose a lot of sleep about it. The first is building and structuring your website. There are all kinds of DIY website builders out there, and they will create a nice looking website for you. And if that's all you need is a nice looking website, then maybe that is the route that you can go. But if you need a website that is actually conversion focused and one that is actually, integrated with Google Analytics, that you're tracking things in Google Search Console, that you have Google Tag Manager installed, that you're able to make sure that the form is going to where it needs to get to. All of that requires some professional input. Okay. So building and structuring the site. If you have a solid foundation for your website, that is the hub for all of your other marketing efforts. And a good site will make every other effort work harder. Your brochures that link back to your website, they're going to do a better job because the website's going to reinforce those brochures. Everything, the website is the hub. So making sure that it is there. A good website means everything else can work a little bit harder. Speed and technical SEO. I don't know about you, but I don't know how to make my website faster. Luckily, I have Nate on my team, and Nate knows how to make everything faster on my website. So if I go and I do a Google speed test, and it's loading a little slow, and it gives me all the suggestions on minifying CSS and making sure that I can reduce my file sizes and look at the blah 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 blah. Everything I just said to you probably sounded Greek also. I have someone on my team that I can say, hey, all of this, here's the suggestions, go make this happen. And typically business owners wouldn't have that information on hand. So whether it's a slow connection or you just got dropped from the search results or Google just sent you a suspension notice for your Google business profile, all of those things a professional is happy to handle. The other thing that could be hired out, should be hired out, security backups and updates. I have 3 clients that I can think about that might be an exception to this that are very capable of handling these on their own. And the other ones need to be outsourced to your host or to us. This is the one that gets turned into a real emergency if it gets skipped. We will have a whole session on this, not next week, but the week after. So talking all about security backups, who's responsible, who makes those updates, etc. And then the last one on here is anything that touches your DNS, your domain name servers or domain name systems, depending on who you ask. That's something that if unless you're really good and you know about all the DNS zone records and all that, this is also something that could be handed over to a professional to make sure that everything that you have the proper DKIM, DMARC, SPF, A records, CNAME records, to make sure that all of those are set up properly and functioning for you. So that was the foundation. And then also the plumbing would also be something we consider worth hiring out as well. That's going to be the stuff that is easy to get wrong, really hard to notice if it's wrong. The first, again, I just rattled all of these off, was SPF, DKIM, DMARC, all of those within the zone record. You want to make sure that those are right because that affects your email deliverability and whether or not people are seeing your website as, or your emails rather, as spam or if they are legitimate. Conversion tracking and Google Analytics setup, as well as Google Tag Manager and Google Search Console. If this is wrong, every number that you look at to judge whether or not your marketing is working is going to be fiction. I literally just audited a Google Ads account where their conversion rate was 134%. It's just not possible. But it was because their conversion was firing at a page load. So every time a page loaded, it was a conversion. So that's you have to make sure that those are set up properly, or else the data that you're viewing is just meaningless. Google Ads are another area that I would say need to be hired out just because Google Ads does what's called smart campaigns. So if you try to set up your own Google ad, they're going to funnel you through the smart campaign, which basically you don't get to see what actual keywords you're bidding on, what the actual cost per click is. You'll get to see your average, but you won't get to see the actual per keyword showing you what the cost per click is. So your average might be okay, but you might be spending way too much money on a specific keyword that you wouldn't normally spend on because it's not going to return the right results for you. So actually setting up Google Ads, I would say leave to the experts because there is so much nuance there in order to do it right and actually see good results from Google Ads. A professional who is well versed in all of the Google Ads in the inner workings, that's going to be something that's very important to have a professional do. And then schema markup. Schema markup, again, this is something that is relatively new that we've been talking about. You've probably heard about it on our other webinars, but this is how search engines and AI tools understand what your business actually is. It gives it like in a very kind of raw data format. Here's all the information. It's worth doing. And again, if you put up your site, it's worth doing that one time. Like as you add pages, you might need to add an FAQ schema or whatever you need to be adding. But the local schema, if you're a local business, that can be set up one time on your website, and then it just continues to work. Now, the hybrid category, I realize that I'm way over time. So thank you for staying on here. I didn't realize I would just continue to talk so much on this, but we're almost through it. We have a couple more slides here, but here's the kind of what I would consider the hybrid category. We do see a lot of money being wasted in this category, but also the ability to do it well if you have the ability in-house. Everything on this is going to be on one side or the other. Content and email are not. So they require kind of both the agency and the customer kind of working together. You're going to be bringing to the table, like we talked about, the expertise, the stories, the examples, your voice, customer questions. Those are the things that you can outsource. Like, I don't want to say that you can't outsource, that you can. It's just not going to be authentic. And I think people can really sniff out when something is not authentic. If your tone is one way in your emails and I call your business and it's a radically different experience between email and calling or between website and calling, that again, it just plants that like seed of doubt of like, well, who's doing the emails? Because it's very different than the person I'm talking to on the phone whose name is at the bottom of the emails. So yes, it can be outsourced, but it is the thing where you should, as a business owner, want to have some influence over the content, the tone, what's important to the customers, those kinds of things. Uh, Easily outsourced is the structure. So editing for, if a client gives us the a voice memo basically of the content. I've asked a question. they've delivered the content back to me. I can easily edit that content for SEO, for AEO. I can make sure that technically when it gets added to the page that we are anchor linking the proper content to the other pages. I can make sure that we have the proper schema for that page. We can make sure that everything is technically set up when we get that information. But the information ultimately came from the business owner. So that connection of, you continuing to share your expertise in a way that makes sense for you to get us or your agency that data, and then us finessing it into a way that is going to get it seen, right? Because your expertise on your website doesn't do you any good if no one is coming to actually read the content that you're producing. One mistake we see people make is owning all of it or outsourcing all of it. They're both kind of expensive in different ways. If you own all of it, and again, you get into that time crunch where it stops after 4 months, that's a problem. If you outsource all of it, like I was just talking about, and it doesn't sound like you, or it's, not exactly right, it's kind of mostly right, but it's not all the way right, people again will sniff out that inauthenticity, and that is again going to be a negative for the business. There are a few things that I could easily put on a list of saying don't pay for these things. So if you are currently paying for these items, I'm going to encourage you to not pay for them. The left-hand side is going to give you all of these. One is don't pay for guaranteed number one ranking. If someone is guaranteeing you organic placement, not in Google Ads, if you're willing to pay for it, then you could easily, I can promise you number one positional placement in Google Ads for the right budget. But for organic rankings or for AI mentions and citations, if someone is saying, I can guarantee you, number one ranking, that's a sales tactic. That is a promise that no one can actually make or keep except the keepers of the algorithm at Google. And the last time I looked, they're not selling, they're not giving us that information. So no one is able to keep this promise. Do not pay for bulk directory submissions. This used to be a thing a couple of years ago, but I've still seen some emails that are coming through that are selling bulk directory submissions. Don't do that either. Don't pay for reviews or followers or engagement. That can be. We have a customer that we're working with right now that they opened up business less than a year ago. They already have 700 or some odd likes on Facebook. When we looked at who those people are, the majority of them are not real people. And a lot of them are in states that we don't even work with, that are not states that we would even be, our customers wouldn't be there or their customers wouldn't be there. So we know that whether the business owner knew or not, their previous social media person purchased likes. And now we're having to go through and clean that up a little bit, because when we're trying to run ads for that customer, if we do the meta ads campaign that we want to do a lookalike audience, well, our audience is bots and people in other states that don't matter to us. So our lookalike audience is absolutely bogus. I would rather have 100 people who we've curated and we've asked them to like our page because we know that they are customers and or people who we want to do business with. I would rather have those folks because they look like our audience, and we can run campaigns against those types of people. But for a purchased audience, it's a vanity number. Doesn't give me anything as far as from a business point of view. It just shows that an inflated number of people like us, and that's not going to help us at all. Paying for backlinks, especially cheap ones, if it's like, hey, we'll give you 100 backlinks for $10. That's one thing that can actually actively get your website penalized. So wouldn't do that either. Don't pay a retainer to an agency if there are no deliverables tied to it. And that could just simply be reporting. You should know exactly what your agency or your SEO company or your SEM company or social media company, you should know exactly what you're paying for. If you can't name a deliverable from the last month, it might be time to go and either ask them for it or see kind of what you're paying for there. And then the last one is tools that you never log into. We just did this and we went through our credit card statement last month and looked at all of the tools that we pay for that we haven't logged into in the last 90 days. And we canceled a whole bunch of them because we were using this tool at one point and now we're not. And those things just kind of stay on your credit card unless you go in and actively cancel them. So we would encourage you to go any of those tools that you haven't logged into for months, go ahead and get rid of them. And then one other thing while we're here is I just had a text from a customer yesterday asking about, she's getting a ton of phone calls from Google And that's air quotes if you can't see me in the video. Google's in air quotes. So she's saying Google is calling her, saying that there is a problem with her Google business profile, and that for I think it was a $39 recovery fee that they would be able to help her out. And that's just not legit. So if you're Google's not going to call and ask you to pay for you to verify your listing. If somebody calls asking for payment, verify it. Full stop. Just it's potentially a scam. Just make sure that they're not trying to get money out of you for no. Okay, and then last, we're getting to it. The bright side is things just to stop doing. If you're doing any of these things, these are things that I'm going to clear your conscience right now. You can stop doing this. If you're posting just to post, like if you don't have a plan for your post, if you don't have a campaign behind what you're posting, you're just willy-nilly out there kind of posting things, you can stop doing that. If your engagement is zero, you can stop doing what you're posting. If you have an account that's been up since 2012, but you haven't posted to it since then either, it's doing you more harm than good, go ahead and go cancel that or revive it. Either cancel it or revive it. Stop using free email addresses for your business emails. I don't like just telling you what to do, but this is one that is legitimately making you look less professional and is so easy to fix. So go secure whatever domain that you're using, go get that domain-based email, and using a free Gmail account is just going to undercut trust and it's going to hurt your deliverability rates. So you want to make sure that you're using a domain-based email. Stop emailing a purchased email list or a list that you haven't verified in a very long time. So if you have an email list that is just sitting in MailChimp and you haven't verified it in a long time, don't then start sending emails to it directly. And then again, I added this one, editing a live site with no backup, because this is with a client that we're currently working with. We don't host their website, and there's some edits they want to make. And we even us as professionals, we edit websites every single day, multiple times, multiple websites, all kinds of different sites. But even us with our professional status will not go in and edit a website unless we know there is a valid backup that we can access. So just as a kind of aside there. And then the last thing, I process our second to last slide here, is things that I would say that we would suggest you never hand over, and that's complete ownership over your domain, your Google business profile, your ad account, your analytics, your email account. You should remain an admin on all of those accounts that I just rattled off. Any agency who's asking you for access, you can add them as a user or an editor or a manager, perfectly fine. But do not hand over ownership of those accounts to someone else. You want to retain that ownership. I've watched businesses lose their domain, lose years of ad history when we've taken over accounts where it's not in their name. So they lose years of ads history. They lose their entire review profile because they're not the owner. So to make sure that you are the owner on all of those accounts. Number two, even if you're having somebody else do your writing for you, because AI does make this a lot easier, right? Like AI can get to know my voice. I've uploaded there's enough audio clips of me talking like this, of me on the radio, of me doing audio. So there's enough out there where AI can really get to know, here's what Patrice would probably say about this. And it would be pretty accurate because it recognizes patterns, it knows my speech, it recognizes all of that. So AI does make number two a little bit easier. Is not handing over your voice completely. Always be able to have a say in what is going out. So review social content, review responses. So if someone has left you a negative review and you have a company that's handling the responses for you, just make sure that you're able to read that so you're not sounding robotic in your responses. It sounds like you, the human, actually sat down and responded to that. And then the last thing is don't hand over the judgment of whether or not something is working. So we've seen people who have said, yeah, my ad campaigns are going great. And then when we look at the numbers, actually, we either look and say, wow, you're spending a lot of money for these few leads. And they're not aware because their existing marketing company is saying, oh, look at all these leads we're bringing in. It's so great. But the numbers actually aren't working. And it's because they haven't, they're just trusting blindly that the reports that they're seeing are accurate. And it's always important to be able to have access to the actual numbers to make sure that you can log into those accounts and say, okay, here's my actual ad spend. here's what I'm paying for management. Here's my cost per click. Here's my cost per acquisition, that you as the business owner or manager have access to all of those things as well. So those are the things we would just encourage you not to completely hand over blindly. All right, I know this one went really long. I'm sorry. Apparently, I have a lot to say about this. I didn't quite realize how much I had to say when I put this PowerPoint together. I ran through it in my head in 20 minutes, but as I got talking today, apparently there's more to it. So again, just to kind of bring it all together, the three questions that we were asking today, our foundation there was, does it compound? What does a mistake cost? And will you actually keep doing it? So those are the three questions that if you're trying to decide, should I do it myself or should I outsource? Those are the three questions you're going to want to ask. Does it compound? What does a mistake cost me? And will I actually keep doing it? And then again, for your homework, like we like to do every single time, the three things worth doing before next Wednesday is check that you are the admin on every single account that has your business name on it. So Google Ads, all of those, Google Business Profile, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of it. And then go ahead and do that little credit card check that we did last month and just run through there and say, hey, I'm paying for these 3 subscriptions or these 5 subscriptions or whatever, and cancel one that maybe you don't need anymore. If you haven't logged into it in 90 days, it's likely that you're not using it as much as you should be. And then the third one is find a task that needs to be done. So if you know that you should be posting on social media, if you know you should be writing blogs every week, if you know you should be putting out a video piece of content once a week, find that thing, that task that you need to be doing, and then run it through those questions. Will this compound? What does a mistake cost? And will I keep doing it? And then for that task, decide if you're going to DIY, if you're going to do it yourself, come up with that plan. And if you've decided to outsource, then reach out to some folks that you know can help you. We obviously would love to help you, and reach out to have that conversation or start that conversation. All right. Next Wednesday, we are looking at, today we talked a lot about digital marketing. Next week, we're actually going to put some numbers to it and take a look at how much does digital marketing cost. So we're going to go through some actual figures, some averages, and you can get an idea of what a plan would actually cost if you were going to put one together for your business. So kind of builds on what we talked about today and gives you some actual numbers. Every session is recorded, so this will be up on our website tomorrow. Every one of them is up on our website right now. So if you want to replay any of these, I know I mentioned a few that we've done in the past, head on over to ProFusionWebSolutions.com. It's all going to be there under the services tab, and then click on the webinars and education, and you will see it all right there. I thank you very much for being here. Again, a lot of information coming at you today. I'll try and keep it closer to 20 minutes next week. But again, thank you very much for being here and hope you have a great day.